to my channel. My name is Coralie and today I am jumping on the bandwagon. So I am going to be reading A Court of Thorns and Roses for the very first time. Yes, I am that far behind. So I have read the Throne of Glass series. I wouldn't say I only just got into reading. I've always enjoyed reading, but I've really gotten into it within the last year or so. Like I've been constantly reading a little bit of a book every single day. And I never thought I would be a fantasy person. Like for some reason it just didn't interest me. I was like, oh, reading about dragons, cool. I don't really care. But I thought I'd give it a go and I read Fourth Wing and I absolutely ate that up. I loved it. And then because I loved that so much, I was like, oh, okay, so we have a whole new genre that just opened up for me, and what else can I find? So obviously, when you think about fantasy books, Sarah J. Maas, she's like top of the list. And when I was deciding what I wanted to read by her, I chose Throne of Glass first. So I have read the entire Throne of Glass series, and I did quite enjoy it. And then I thought, that was cool, but I want to read the Crescent City series, and for some reason A Court of Thorns and Roses just hasn't really interested me, because from what I've heard it's literally just one giant book of spice, which like hell yeah, but I'd rather read about the cool side of fantasy than all the spice. So I was going to go from Throne of Glass to Crescent City, but my sister, I have two sisters, they're both quite big fans of the series. She said I really need to read ACOTAR before Crescent City. So I've been putting it off for a very, very long time, and I have finally picked it up. Now, I've been reading it a little bit so far before I picked up the camera, and I believe I'm about 17% through. Feyre, if that's how you say her name, has just been taken from her home to the new area she's going to be living. And so far, I'm enjoying it. I'm not absolutely captivated yet, but I feel like it has the potential. And if I am saying this correctly, I feel like the spice doesn't really happen till later in the books, where it seems like she gets a little bit carried away because her audience loved spice, so she gave them spice. I don't have a problem with a spicy book. Like I said, I would just prefer more of a fantasy book. Like Fourth Wing, perfect. So much fantasy, a little bit of spice. Loved it. Such a good book. But I thought I would document this because I know how many diehard fans there are of ACOTAR, and I thought it would be fun to record my thoughts as I get through this book and see if I also become quite the fan and whether this becomes a 5-star read or not. So without further ado, I guess we're going to keep reading. Right now I am up to chapter 8. I pretended to meander through the exquisite and silent gardens. Okay, I'm 18% through. There is a lot that is still yet to happen. From my understanding, Feyre, the human, has been taken to the fairy world, and she has grown up being taught that that is a very, very bad and dangerous place. And from what I assume is going to happen, and from what I've heard from the book space, she's going to meet someone that is Fae, that she should fear, but instead she's going to fall in love. So I'm very curious to see how they mix the fantasy and the romance and what I think of the book. So let's keep reading and see if I become a fan of ACOTAR like every other person in the world. Like if it's so highly talked about, it's got to be good. Like I loved Fourth Wing, so let's be real. Time to find out if I love ACOTAR too. So let's get reading. Okay, so coming into this book relatively blind, I have no idea who the love interest is going to be, and so far we've met Tamlin and Lucian, and I don't know if either of those are the main love interest. I feel like if any of them are going to be, it could be Lucian, because I feel like Feyre and Lucian have some good banter and they seem to challenge each other, but I'm not convinced he is the love match of this series. But yeah, I am 23% in so far, so there is plenty of time for another character to get involved. But so far, with all the characters that we've met, if we had to guess a love interest, I'd say Lucian, but I don't think that's the one. Let's keep reading and find out. I feel like it's going to be pretty obvious when we meet him, but we'll see. You know what? I take back what I said earlier. If Feyre is getting freaky with anyone, with any of the characters we met so far, it's going to be Tamlin. So okay, so I'm 50% through the book now, and Tamlin is most definitely the main love interest. Although I have a feeling the handsome fairy with the dark hair, or whoever that was that saved Feyre at the fire party, I have a feeling he's gonna come back and there's gonna be like a little bit of a love triangle or something, because they put too much emphasis on the fact that he was the most beautiful thing she'd ever seen. But so far I am definitely rooting for Feyre and Tamlin. I mean, chances are they're going to be mates or something like that. I feel like that is the obvious path for this to go down, but obviously there's a lot of books, so there's going to be a lot of conflict. It's not going to be straightforward, but it is actually hilarious now to look back and think that I thought Lucian was going to be the love interest when that is definitely not happening. But yeah, I'm 50% through. I'm very much enjoying it, and time to keep reading. Okay, so things are getting very interesting now. Without giving too much away if you haven't read the book, Feyre is currently under the mountain in the cave area, and she has just agreed to the 3 trials. So I'm assuming the rest of the book is going to be her doing these trials, and it's going to be pretty intense is my guess. I'm about, I think, like 70% through, 72% through the book, so I've still got about 3 hours left or so according to my Kindle, but I feel like it's going to be pretty intense. I am very interested to see what happens now. But yeah, we've also met the handsome, most beautiful man she's ever seen in her life, and his name was Rysand, and I'm gonna make a guess here. I don't think it's going to happen in this book because obviously she's very committed to Tamlin right now. But I feel like there's going to be a love triangle, and Rysand is going to be a bit of a enemies to lovers situation, because I don't think Sarah J. Maas would have put so much emphasis on how absolutely beautiful this man was if there wasn't going to be romantic interest, especially with how spicy this book gets. So I'm sure there's going to be some spice scenes, but that is my guess. But I don't think it's going to happen in this book. The rest of this book is going to be focused on the trials and Feyre and Tamlin. But I'm intrigued and I am very excited to keep reading. So that is exactly what I'm going to do. I've got a little bit of time in the car here. My boyfriend's just doing a test at school, so I'm just waiting in the car for him to finish. And then, yeah, so I've got like a good little while to do some reading and then go from there. So 72% through. It's getting intense and I'm excited to see where this goes. So let's keep reading. Okay, so I have officially finished ACOTAR, and I'm gonna go ahead and say it. This was a lot better than I thought it would be, especially the first book. It was very fantasy based. I very much enjoyed it. I found the start to perhaps be a little bit slow, but once Feyre was in the cave area and the 3 trials began, that was crazy. I loved that very much, but I am still very much convinced that the next book is going to bring about a love triangle, because Sarah J. Maas has set it up perfectly. If Feyre has to spend 1 week every single month alone with Rysand, we know exactly what's going to happen, and I very much started to like Rysand, however you say his name, by the end of ACOTAR. I don't know who I prefer, Tamlin or Rysand. Probably Tamlin currently, because, you know, he's very sweet and actually loves Feyre, but overall I very much enjoyed it, and honestly, I should have read it sooner. I completely understand the hype, and I've heard the audiobooks are absolutely incredible, but I will continue reading the series. I will probably do something similar to what I did with Throne of Glass. I read a book of Throne of Glass, and then in between each book I read something else, kind of just as a palate cleanser, because I didn't want to absolutely drown myself in one universe. So I've just finished ACOTAR. I'll probably read a mystery, a thriller, something like that. I literally just went on a bit of a Kindle ebook buying rampage, and I bought like 5-6 books, so my Kindle is nice and stocked again. But yeah, that was ACOTAR. I have finally read it. And it definitely got to the point at the end of the book where I couldn't put it down, and I read this very quickly as well, within a couple of days. Today was the hardest because I read on my lunch break at work. I have a 30-minute lunch break, so I'm probably reading for 20-25 minutes, and I got to about the 90% mark. She was either just about to start or just ending her 3rd trial when my lunch break was over, so I was like, are you serious? I just want to keep reading. I don't want to go back into my office right now. But yeah, that was ACOTAR. If you have considered reading this book, I would highly recommend it. If you're not a big fan of spice and smut. That's not a problem. There was like pretty much nothing in this book, so very curious to see where she takes it with the second book, but I'm sold. I'm a fan. I liked it. I feel like it was probably a 4.5 stars for me. I found the start, like I said, a little bit slow, but I was really hooked by the end of it. So there we go. That was ACOTAR. That was my experience reading it for the first time. And yeah, if you want to see me go through the motions of reading book number 2 as well, I would enjoy filming that. It's just hilarious to think about how far off I was at the start, how I thought, oh, she's not gonna fall in love with Tamlin, maybe Lucian, but probably not. Like, I had a feeling that someone would just come crashing into her life mid-book, kind of like how Ryson did, but obviously I was off the mark a little bit there. But yeah, good book. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. Let me know in the comments below if you have read this book and what you thought of it. I feel like people either love it or hate it. You're probably a 2-3 stars or a 5 stars. So let me know. And thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye guys.